and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Let's get into these games and let's give these people some winners. And we're just going in time order. So if you're joining the podcast late, I will have time codes. Everything will be set up. And we'll start with that Raiders-Bengals because you said you feel like the Bengals are the popular, everyone thinks that they're good side. And I think everyone likes the Raiders. I think people love what they saw. They remember what they saw last. They have questions about the Bengals. They see the Raiders as a fun team that just won big on, to get into the playoffs. And this line opened at 6.5. It's now down to 5 or 5.5, depending on where you look. And based on 20,000 bets, the Raiders are getting 49% of the bets and 91% of the money, which is pretty insane splits.
Ooh, that's crazy.
So maybe and as someone who's already bet the Bengals, maybe I'm trying to convince myself that those numbers are incorrect. Because, it's basically an even split in terms of bets, but significant amount of money on the Raiders.
Yeah, even though I did say I feel like Cincinnati in the AFC, outside of the recency bias that the Raiders are getting with that crazy game on Sunday Night Football, are kind of that darling because they have the star power on offense. They can create turnovers on defense. The storylines behind Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, being best friends in college and now in the NFL. If they were to advance here, I feel like they automatically become the talk of the AFC.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm allowing this line to kind of get lower because I don't think the Raiders can stay with Cincinnati on either side of the ball. The Bengals defense has been really good. The Raiders, outside of Darren Waller, really don't have anything that threatens you on the outside. In Cincinnati, where it's going to be extremely cold, it'll be interesting to see if the Raiders get the benefit of any more of those throw-up balls, as Jerry Jones likes to say. And Cincinnati can play that game too with their three high flyers on the outside.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on the Bengals here, laying the spread. I like Cincinnati to put up a decent amount of points here. And looking back, these two teams played a few weeks ago, in mid-November, and Cincinnati dominated the game, really. I mean,
so that's the thing. So it was the final score was 32-13, making it look like a blowout. But in the fourth quarter, the Bengals did score 19 points to just 7 for the Raiders, making it look a lot more lopsided. At the end of the third quarter, it was 13-6. At the end at halftime, it was 10-6. So this really, for me, it depends on how you see this game going. Do you think there's a lot of Joe Mixon and Josh Jacobs and really slow game plan and, not really testing the Raiders as much as they probably should? Then, I think the Raiders are very much in play. And I think a money line play on Oakland or Vegas makes a lot of sense. Now, if you think, the Bengals are going to open things up a little bit more, we've seen it, against Kansas City. They throw it, that gives them a shot. Now, Joe Burrow is amazing against the blitz, and the Raiders don't really blitz. They're comfortable with their front four getting home, which means they can drop those linebackers. They can add an extra corner or extra safety. And not necessarily, while they're not great, in terms of coverage, having just a bunch of people back there, I think will definitely be a nice weapon. And then on the offense, the Raiders get Darren Waller back. They have Hunter Renfrow. It just really comes down to, does Derek Carr make dumb plays or does Joe Burrow make great plays? And that's how this game's going to go.
Yeah. The only reason why I'm comfortable laying the points with Cincinnati here is that we've seen the Bengals compete with kind of upper echelon teams, whereas the Raiders, they've done it in instances, but I mean, you've seen them get blown out. They're very inconsistent on offense. One game, Derek Carr looks great. He's slinging it all over the place, and the running game is looking really good. The next game, they can't run the ball for crap, and it's all on Derek Carr's shoulders. He looks completely out of sorts. And that's kind of what I see here. I mean, the last time these two teams played, the Raiders only ran for like 70 or 75 yards. And if they can't get the running game going and you have to put the game solely on Derek Carr's arm, all the Bengals got to do is get in his face, because it's well known throughout the league and by fans alike that he is not good when pressure is put in his face. And that's where Cincinnati could really turn this game over and then just ride Joe Mixon all the way to the win and, by a 7 or 8 or something covering this line.
Yep, and if you look at the Raiders, they've won 4 in a row coming into this game, but it's against a Chargers game that was really weird, and all the Chargers receivers forgot how to catch the ball.
Well, and it's
before
the
that,
Chargers.
it was the Colts and Carson Wentz, who just lost to the Jacksonville. It's clearly their season. Denver with Drew Lock under center. Browns with Nick Mullins under center.
Exactly.
Before that, they lost to Kansas City 48-9. They lost to the football team. They beat your Cowboys. So it's the thing with the Raiders is when they played Dallas, when they played a primetime game against the Chargers, they popped in a big way, and I think a lot of people have that. But yeah, I think you really need to think about how you see this game going and finding ways to attack it. Like, I think the over is very much in play if you like Bengals. If you like the Raiders, I think it's under City. I think both teams run the ball. Keep it. You could look at some, obviously we'll mix in some props as well. But Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs carries could make a lot of sense if you think it's going to be a closer, low scoring game. But I think we're both comfortable taking the Bengals, and the Bengals -5 will be on my betting card.
I'm actually staying in this game. I actually like the Bengals to light up the scoreboard early on in this contest, knowing that the Raiders are not built to really play in those shootout type of games from behind. Yeah. Yes, last week's game was a high-scoring affair, but if they get put behind, you're putting them in a position to play offense the way they don't want to. So I like Cincy over 13.5 in the first half.
And the Raiders also just played an overtime game on the last game of the slate, and now they're the first game of the playoff slate.
The NFL doing them no favors.
Yeah. Which my Raiders friends group chat is they're very 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 happy about that. I did want to throw out a few nuggets, and I'll try and mix them in as we go. So first-time starters are 38.5% have covered 38.5% of the time, including 16 and 36 since 2002. First-time starters include Mac Jones, Derek Carr, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, and Jalen Hurts. Derek Carr will be just the 7th 30-year-old quarterback to make his playoff debut in the last 2 decades. Previous 6 went 2-4 against the spread. Former number 1 picks, Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray, have gone 3-6 against the spread, and in a 6-game stretch, an average loss of 13 points. And then I have another nugget for the Colt game. But yeah, so that's something to think about as well. Like for this game, for example, like you can't go, well, both quarterbacks have started, so that kind of gets thrown out the window.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow making their first start, Derek Carr making his first playoff start, so we'll go there.
I want to hit on one player prop real quick in this game that's kind of under the radar here, and that's CJ Uzomah. Amongst those plethora of weapons that Joe Burrow has, Uzomah has kind of carved out a pretty nice role here in games where teams look to take away the outside. And Uzomah's receiving yards prop is currently sitting at 25.5. And now this is more based on what the Raiders have allowed against opposing tight ends. They've now gone 7 straight games giving up 27 or more receiving yards to tight ends. And, traditionally, this team does like to play the outside, try to prevent these wide receivers. And so Joe Burrow, he may be looking to get the ball out to Uzomah, knowing that Max Crosby and company is coming off that end, getting in his face rather quickly. So this could be a potential spot for Joe Mixon receiving props. I like Uzomah, and then those longest yards props for a Jamar Chase or a T. Higgins as well.
Yep. in that same game at the same position, I like Darren Waller props. I like the receiving yards. If you can get it around 60 or a little bit, so 59, 60, 61, anywhere in that range, I think that there's some value there. Darren Waller, anytime touchdown plus 180 is interesting. I don't know that I love the receptions just because I don't know that the Raiders will run enough plays to get him to 6 or so receptions. But the
Yeah.
longest reception of 20, 21 and a half, somewhere in that range could be in play too. I could see a long play to Darren Waller over the middle, for 30 yards, and then he gets a couple and 2 or 3 other catches for another 30 yards, 35 yards, catches a touchdown, and you're in business. The other thing I will say is I know T. Higgins returned full in practice, but I think there's some potential. If you think T. Higgins is healthy and he's fine, his number is set really low, 65 and a half, 70 yards, somewhere in that range. Also, 5.5 receptions. A lot of people are gravitating towards Jamar Chase, but that could be in play. And then if you think T. Higgins is not where he needs to be, Tyler Boyd reception props could be a nice way. Obviously Brian mentioned CJ Uzama, who could make some sense stepping up as well. But Tyler Boyd's receiving yards is 41, 42 yards. Like I feel like that's very much in play. His and especially with his receptions, 3.5 under his plus 130. So that means people think he's going to get 4 or more receptions. And that's 10 yards a catch, which Tyler Boyd's not a big time play guy, but has the ability to go for 40
Yep.
yards in a reception.
And he's the chain mover down the seams as well.
Let's shift our focus. Let's talk that night game because there is a lot to get into. I've been fade the Patriots all year. I was tempted to take them. I will say there have been 6 games played at 10 degrees or played below 10 degrees this century. Underdogs are 4-1-1 against the spread in that game, in those games.
Do we have any data on who the participants were in those games?
No, but like one of them was that Vikings Saints game or Vikings Seahawks, where the Vikings ended up advancing. I don't have that though. But yeah, I think the other thing I will say is the Bills have won 1, 2, 3. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games this year, Ryan. I know counting on the podcast is what people turned in for, but the Bills have won 11 games. In all of their 11 wins, they have won by double digits, and their smallest victory has been 12 points. They beat Miami by 35. They beat Houston by 40. They beat Washington by 22. Jacksonville by 28. Not a lot of teams that are really giving you a lot of confidence. But I feel like if you like New England, the money line it should be at least a sprinkle, if not a full bet.
Definitely. I feel like there's only one of two. There's only 2 ways to really bet this game. You're either taking Patriots money line here, because if this is a close game, that means that they're getting to Josh Allen. They're confusing them on offense, and this Patriots defense is doing what they do. And the other side of that is grabbing Buffalo minus the 4. This team has all the building of a potential Super Bowl team. The offense has finally started to kind of click. They've established a running game, which
Devin Singletary is your running game, not Zach Moss. Devin Singletary.
Super weird. Like they've been Matt Breida, Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, Josh Allen. It doesn't matter who the hell's back there for them. For me, I have a clear lean in Buffalo's side here. I've liked them the entire year. I've picked them both times against the Patriots, even in that game, which Buffalo should have won at home with the crazy weather. The Patriots cannot play the similar style. It's going to be really cold, probably some wind, but nowhere near as bad. So the Bills are going to win this game, and I like them covering the 4.
Yeah, and I think that game where it was insanely windy and really cold is in a lot of people's heads. And that's not what this game is going to be. Is it going to be cold?
No.
Yeah, sure. It's going to be cold. And is that not as conducive to passing games? Yeah, it's probably not as conducive. But I think at the end of the day, it'll be fine as long as there's not crazy amounts of wind.
I was just going to say,
Um,
it's really wind that affects passing, but Josh Allen has a freaking howitzer attached to his shoulder, so
and
it's
he
not
also
like the
played at
wind.
Wyoming, where it's really, really cold.
Exactly.
The one thing I will say is I think the game in the really cold conditions was kind of a good thing for them to see what they can do, what they can't do,
True.
and have a better game plan going into this one, because I think there is a lot of potential. And Josh Allen's played in playoff games before, and well, Mac Jones hasn't, and rookies don't do well. First time playoff guys don't typically do well. And I know it's Bill Belichick, and I know the Patriots have had a great season, and they've kind of come to fruition. And this line is a little bit bigger than I think the previous one, and so that's a little concerning. I don't like seeing that much, like when the teams are pretty much the same. But
Yeah, but I feel like sitting at 4 is like right above that home field advantage
yeah.
lay. I mean, it.
And I feel like Buffalo is actually a home field advantage um, where some of these other teams don't necessarily have a quote unquote home field advantage. Any props or anything else before we move on to Sunday?
This game is really difficult to gauge from a prop perspective because of the cold weather. I mean, Josh Allen could be running the ball all over the place or passing. There is one that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. If you do think that the Patriots keep this game close, grabbing Damian Williams rush yards props, which is like sitting at 54.5, 55.5, I think makes a ton of sense, because if the Patriots are going to stay in this game, it's going to be via the ground attack and them keeping the ball away from Buffalo. So I think that's one that I'm monitoring as we get closer to maybe. Hopefully, it drops a little bit, but he's kind of one on the Patriots side that I'm looking at.
So is Damian Harris not playing? Because I'm looking at DraftKings as we speak, and I don't see him listed. And in fact, I see Ramondre Stevenson listed, and his prop to the over at 39.5 is minus 125. I feel like I'm missing something there. Because if I go on to FTN prop, it says they have it listed at 56.5, 58.5 over at FanDuel. So that is kind of interesting.
Well, our friends over offshore have Damian Harris and not Ramondre Stevenson.
Interesting.
So
I kind of like the Devin Singletary, 64.5. I kind of like the Josh Allen, 44.5. Because if it is a little bit colder and they are running a little bit more, both those guys could be in play for monster days.